What's this? A letter for me.
Welcome to another episode of Remember the Great Sports Through the Mail Thursdays. Today I'm going to share with you 3 recent returns that I got back in the mail, and one of these stories is somewhat amazing. I haven't done a football video in a while, but when I decided to do this video, I was doing some research and I unearthed a story about one of these individuals that is just amazing. So stay tuned for that. He's going to be the last one I feature, so let's just jump right into these. And the first one is a return from Atlanta, Georgia. There's a return on 2 from former defensive back of the Buffalo Bills, Nate Odomes. And I actually sent Nate a couple extra cards, but he decided to keep them, which is fine. I have no problem with that. I think if he can find better use for him than that's certainly fine that he keeps them. So let me tell you about Nate Odomes and his career in football. Nate Odomes attended Carver, Columbus High School in Georgia, and was discovered to go play for the University of Wisconsin for the Wisconsin Badgers. While he was in college, he became one of the top defensive backs and was drafted in the second round of the 1987 draft by the Buffalo Bills. Well, after being drafted in 1987, Odomes made an immediate impact with the Bills, where he appeared in 12 games, starting 12 of those games for the Bills that season. The following year, in 1988, Odomes would start in all 16 games in the backfield for the Bills, and he would continue this trend all the way through 1992, where in 1993 he would appear in 15 of the 16 games. So he missed one game his entire career with the Buffalo Bills from 1988 to 1993. Well, in 1992 he would make his first Pro Bowl with the Buffalo Bills, and in 1993 he would make his second Pro Bowl. One of the most notable things in his career that he's known for was the famous interceptions that he made in the famous Frank Reich comeback game for the Bills. In 1993, his second Pro Bowl season, he led the AFC in interceptions. He appeared in 4 Super Bowls with the Bills, which everybody knows the history of the Bills, so I'm not going to get into that. Played in 108 games, starting 107 of those in his career. After his time with the Bills, he actually did sign with the Seattle Seahawks. However, due to some injuries over a 2-year span, he did not play at all in the 94 or 95 season due to those injuries while he was with the Seahawks. Well, after his time with the Seahawks, he was let go, and he signed with the Atlanta Falcons, where he appeared in 7 games his final year in the NFL in 1996. Again, this is one of those guys that could be argued, does he belong in the Hall of Fame? He doesn't have that Super Bowl ring, unfortunately, but, he was one of the best in his position for a long time in the AFC, and on those, major teams, of the Buffalo Bills in the early 90s. So, very happy to add Nate Odomes to the collection, and we'll move on to the next one. All right, this next one is also one of the best from his era, not in the Hall of Fame, and this is the linebacker of the Denver Broncos, Karl Mecklenburg, on 4 of 4. And I wrote Karl recently, and he responded by signing these 4 for me. And I've got a ton of cards from this era, from the junk wax era. So, I'm very happy to get Karl back in the mail to sign those. So let me tell you about Karl Mecklenburg and his career in football. Born in Seattle, Washington, Mecklenburg was not a highly touted prospect in high school and actually wound up going to college in Minnesota. In Minnesota, he still flew under the radar, and in 1983 he was drafted in the 12th round of the 1983 draft by the Denver Broncos. That's the 310th pick overall. In spite of his low selection, Mecklenburg went on to become an integral part of the Broncos' Super Bowl teams of the 1980s. He played in 6 Pro Bowls. His 79 sacks are the 3rd highest total in franchise history. He is one of only 3 Broncos with 4 sacks in a game, and the only one to do so twice. He is also a member now of the Colorado Sports Hall of Fame and also serves with the Broncos Alumni Association. For his career in the NFL, Mecklenburg appeared in 180 games, starting 141 of those. He has over 1,100 tackles with 1,118 tackles. He has 16 forced fumbles and 14 fumble recoveries and 5 interceptions for 2 touchdowns, defensive touchdowns for his career. As I mentioned, he's part of the Ring of Honor. He's in the top 10 Denver Broncos all time according to NFL Films. Now, after his career, he has become a motivational speaker and very involved in a lot of the Denver area clubs and charity work and such. He even serves as an assistant scoutmaster in the Boy Scouts. And Karl has been very involved with the community of Denver after they embraced him, with that 12th round pick, way back in the early 1980s. And the guy's been a part of that community ever since. So thank you very much, Mr. Mecklenburg, and we'll move on to the next one. All right, so this next one is postmarked as well from a former all-time great, and that is Sherman Smith, Sherman the Tank Smith, actually, the former running back of the Seattle Seahawks. And as you can see, he signed 404. He didn't leave a lot of room for Steve Largent to sign, but that's okay. I guess Steve can sign it a lot smaller if I get around to Steve signing it. But let me tell you about Sherman Smith and his amazing career in football, but what happened after his career, which is even more amazing. Sherman Smith was a Ohio native, and he actually originally played quarterback at North High School in Youngstown, Ohio. After he graduated from high school, he attended Miami University in Ohio, playing the same position and leading the Miami Redhawks to the Mid-American Conference title in each of his last 3 seasons with a stellar record of 33-1. Smith was drafted in the second round of the 1976 NFL Draft by the Seattle Seahawks as a running back. As the Seahawks, he got the name The Tank in reference to the Sherman Tank because of his performance to run through tackles. He was the first offensive player picked by a new expansion team in their first season, the Seattle Seahawks. He was the first Seahawk to rush for over 100 yards in a game when he ran for 124 yards against the Atlanta Falcons on November 7th, 1976. Smith cumulatively led the team in rushing in his first 4 seasons, eventually amassing over 3,429 yards and 28 touchdowns in his 7 years with the team. He also caught the ball 210 times for a total of 2,445 yards and 10 touchdowns. After his time with the Seahawks, he played very sparingly for the San Diego Chargers the following year in 1983. Well, after his retirement from playing, the following year, Smith began teaching and coaching at Redmond Junior High School, then Redmond High School in the state of Washington. He became the running back coach a little bit later at Miami University, his alma mater, and then later the tight ends coach at the University of Illinois. He would return to the NFL in 1995 with the Houston Oilers as their running back coach, a position that he would hold all the way through 2007, even after their relocation to Tennessee. He would go to coach for the Washington Redskins, and after the 2008 and then into the 2009 season, there was a head coach change, and Sherman went with that head coach. After that 2009 season, he would return to familiar ground, the Seattle Seahawks, and he would be the running backs coach from 2010 to 2017 with the Seattle Seahawks. In 2017, Pete Carroll decided to make a change with his coaching staff, and Smith was no longer retained in that position. Well, this is where things get kind of out of the ordinary. Smith returned to Ohio, and he was actually doing recruiting work for his alma mater, Miami of Ohio. Well, he was actually on a recruiting trip, and he was trying to recruit a young man named DeLon McCullough. The two had not really known each other prior to this, and it turned out that Sherman Smith was DeLand McCullough's father. So all of these years, Mr. Smith, I don't know if he knew that he had this child or he didn't, but he was recruiting this young man, and they figured out that he was the father. Now, I'm not going to put words, out there or, pass anything false out there, but there has been some documentaries done on this very story, neither of which that I knew anything about until shooting this video. The first one is called Identity, and the second one was Runs in the Family, which was written by Sarah Spain for ESPN.com. It was also depicted in 2021 in a film called Show Me the Father, a documentary film by the Kendrick brothers. So imagine having an entire career, and then you're on a recruiting trip, and you're sitting down, I guess, and meeting this individual and trying to get to know them, and it turns out it's your own son. So again, I have not seen any of these ESPN stories. I have not seen any documentaries or anything about this story, but I just find that amazing that Sherman Smith found out he was a father when he went on a recruiting trip and was trying to recruit somebody. I don't know if he went on a trip, but he was trying to recruit somebody. Well, his son did not have the pro career that his father did. However, he did have a career in football. So, all in all, a great story. I want to thank Mr. Smith for signing for me. I also want to thank Mr. Odomes for signing for me. I also want to thank Karl Mecklenburg for signing for me as well. I want to thank you for taking the time to join me for another episode. I haven't done football in a little while, so I hope you enjoyed these stories about these three great former football players. All three of these guys, for a certain period of time, were some of the best at their positions. And talk about a cool name. I should have asked him to inscribe one of the cards the Tank, but oh well, maybe next time. Thanks for taking the time to watch, and as always, happy collecting.